The TED Fellows are working on some of the most pressing challenges of our times: climate change, regional conflicts, fighting inequalities. To tackle these issues, it requires collaboration across disciplines, which are often hard to understand and hard to identify. Last month, we asked all the TED Fellows about themselves, their work, their collaborations, their needs, their motivations. And the data in the raw format is really hard to understand. We use shapes to make sense of it. For example, here is a shape which answers questions about proportions, the different countries where the fellows are coming from. Here's a shape which answers questions about the age distributions. The average age is 36, by the way, and the youngest being 19. However, the point is, every shape that we use to explore the data is, in effect, a lens through which we gain understanding. I've been an architect for the first half of my career, and I've played with shapes using simple pen and paper. Then I studied computer science at MIT to build digital tools to design with complex shapes. The one thing that I discovered, and that I hope to convince you here today, that shapes are an interface for thinking. They affect and influence the very questions that we ask. For example, here's a shape that answers questions about the geographic reach of the Fellows program. Every dot here is actually a fellow, and if we overlay the connections between who collaborates with who, we get to see how incredibly and truly international these collaborations are. However, it's hard to understand if there are any distinct collaborative groups working together in this particular shape. In this particular view, every dot is still a fellow, and fellows working together find each other in space literally and form these constellations. These constellations are like the new continents. They defy the geographic boundaries. These shapes also help us see some hidden patterns which are normally invisible. For example, here's a group of fellows collaborating with each other on film, photography, and writing. They include space researchers to data storytellers to filmmakers. Here's another constellation where fellows are working on agriculture, ecology, and sustainable design. The largest constellation is around technology, entrepreneurship, and data science. This is also the constellation where I find myself. Through the TED Fellows program, I met ecologist Eric Berlow and data artist David Gurman. And together, we've been building a technology platform to make sense of complex data. Actually, what you see on the screen is a live demonstration of that very platform, the nexus of science, design, and technology in action. Using Mapper, we have been collaborating with a set of fellows, and we have explored from music to microbes. Previously, Eric and David had worked with data artist Julie Freeman on a project to democratize personal data called We the Data. We the Data was actually presented at the World Economic Forum. Julie is at the heart of this emergent group of fellows working at the intersection of art and activism. With Yana Tavernier, a social activist, Julie is building a platform to bring art and activism closer called FineAx. FineAx is a platform which recently brought together around 20 TED Fellows to explore the meaning of peace through their work. Moving from art to art history, this is Genevieve von Pitzinger, an art historian who is working with an underwater robotics entrepreneur called David Lang. David This is the shape of the synergistic collaborations within the Fellows program. Now, what about potential collaborations? Collaborations waiting to happen. What if we could expose and find the hidden links between people who share similar interests and motivations? Here's what it would look like. Every dot here is still a fellow, but they're not linked with who collaborates with who, but if they share similar interests and motivations. Let's recap. Here, every dot is a fellow, and they're linked if they share explicit collaborations. Here, they are linked if they share similar motivations and interests. Let's zoom back to David Lang. David here is, instead of being linked with Genevieve, is linked with other fellows who share similar interests and motivations. For example, robotics entrepreneur Sergey Lupushin and neuroscientist Greg Gage. David can zoom out and see the larger constellation that he belongs to. Here, it's a group of technologists and entrepreneurs who are driven by a strong sense of achievement. Not only that, David can zoom out even further to see other constellations which are next to him. Here, a group of scientists who are motivated by the idea of giving their gifts to the world, and David can find collaborators who are different from him, who are complementary to him. For example, here is Seth Raphael, a high-tech magician. Imagine the kind of underwater magic that is waiting to happen if these two guys got together. This is the shape of the community at this point. And the Fellows program, as it grows, the shape of this community will evolve and build a living map. Anyone in this Fellows community would be able to see where they land and find themselves and their potential collaborators. The amount of latent information in this world is already overwhelming, and we need new interfaces to explore them. This is what I am passionate about, building interfaces for thinking. Interfaces that will give you an X-ray vision into hidden patterns and help you connect the dots. Thank you.
So, Kaustuv, so what we did a couple of months ago is we put out a survey to all the fellows, and they filled out lots of stuff about them, how they're motivated, what their backgrounds are, what they do, but also who does something meaningful. This is not just couch surfing. This is collaborations that are happening. And then your software tool takes that and automatically visualizes that and pulls out these patterns. Is that right?
Yes. So what you saw, the one network that was, we just asked people who collaborates with who. But there was other kinds of networks where the shape was emergent. It was about like people talking about what they are motivated by, like the scientists talking about sharing their gifts to the world. Like when we are looking at interdisciplinarity, each fellow is like an interdisciplinary like center. They tag themselves with tens and tens of discipline tags. So the software, what it does, it mines the data and sees like who is similar to who across many, many different dimensions.
Well, to me, that's quite an evolution to our directory on the Fellows website, which is basically a list. And if you're a fellow, right now, you can't, it's hard to tell who do you want to get in touch with. But for this, the idea is this is a real tool, it's live now. a fellow can go in there and just cruise around and look and explore and find people that they weren't expecting, just sort of serendipity, right?
Absolutely. You will find yourself surrounded by other fellows who are linked with you across several different dimensions
Right.
from
And then
motivation.
fellows get really competitive. Like I only have 17 spokes coming out of my circle. I need to have 87. They're hubs.
Maybe the one spoke that you're connected to will change the world.
Thank you so much.